In today's lesson, we're going to look at how to use have to, must, and should in English. Hello and welcome to another video. My name's Alex. Remember to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss any of our lessons on Tuesdays and Thursdays. In today's lesson, we're going to look at have to, must, and should. So we're comparing have to and must with the idea of obligation, and we're looking at should as a way of giving advice or making a suggestion. So let's start by comparing have to and must. Both have to and must are normally used to talk about obligation. For example, you have to wear a seatbelt in a car. Or you must be on time tomorrow for work. So the meaning of these two verbs here is quite similar. You have to wear a seatbelt in a car and you must be on time for work tomorrow. There's an obligation for you to do these things. We know these two verbs are quite similar, but let's talk about some of the differences. The first thing to note is that have to is a normal verb, which means we can use it in all tenses. But must is a modal verb, so we can only use it in the present tense, even though sometimes it can have a future meaning. But this means if we want to talk about obligation in the past, we have to use have to, or had to, or didn't have to in that case. Thinking about the meaning, they are quite similar, but there's a little difference as well. Have to is more common for general, external obligations. So for example, students have to bring a pen to class. So that's an obligation from outside telling you as a student this is something that you have to do. So we're thinking about rules and laws and things like that. Must to is more common for specific, meaning one-time obligations. For example, I must buy some new shoes, these look old. So it's just one time you have to buy these shoes, so you must do it. Let's talk about these verbs in a negative meaning. The negative of both have to and must is actually don't have to, which means there's no obligation. For example, you don't have to go to the party if you don't want to. It means you're not obliged. There's no obligation for you to go to the party if you don't want to. Whereas mustn't has a different meaning. Mustn't means it isn't allowed or it's prohibited. For example, you mustn't park here. You're not allowed to park here. So don't have to and mustn't are actually very different in meaning. And the negative of have to or must is don't have to. Okay, and let's talk about should. So should is used to give advice or suggestions and isn't as strong as have to or must. For example, you shouldn't drink so much coffee. So it isn't prohibited, or there's no lack of obligation to do that, but it just isn't a good idea to drink so much coffee. Okay, so let's test your understanding of these things. I'm going to give you 4 sentences, and in each sentence I'm going to give you 2 options, either must, have to, or should. In each one, I'd like you to choose what you think is the correct option. Okay, so let's do the first one. You don't have to, or you mustn't, use your phone when driving. So which one do you think is correct here? Do you think there's a lack of obligation, or is it not allowed? It's not allowed, so the correct answer is you mustn't use your phone when driving. Let's look at the second one. A policeman has to, or must, wear a uniform at work. What do you think about this one here? So we know it's an obligation, which means it could maybe be both, but is it an external obligation? Is it a one-time obligation? It's an external obligation, and it's obviously something that happens all the time, or has to happen all the time. So the correct answer, or the better answer here, is a policeman has to wear a uniform at work. Let's have a look at number 3. You shouldn't, or mustn't, talk when you're eating. So what do you think about this one here? Is this advice, or is this like a law or a rule? It's advice, or something that is a good idea, or in this case, not a good idea to do. So the correct answer is, you shouldn't talk when you're eating. Okay, and sentence 4. I had to, or must, go to work early yesterday because we had a meeting. So here we know it's an obligation, but it's an obligation in the past because of yesterday. We can't use must in the past here with this meaning, so we have to use had to. I had to go to work early yesterday because we had a meeting. How many did you get correct? Please like this video if you feel like you got benefit from this lesson. Also, feel free to put some example sentences in the comments below and I'll correct them for you. Follow us on social media and I'll see you next time.